Hello, my name's Pippa Bartolotti. I've written several books, and my latest one, finally, is the last book in the trilogy I've called The Symmetries. And this one is Elemental Symmetry. It tells the story of the woman who started off as a girl, who's fighting her way across the world. She's wandering in devastated areas. She's finding love. She's finding purpose, and she's helping build a new society. It's a very important kind of story because we will be building new societies in the future. And it's interesting to examine what they might look like, how technology might progress. Anyway, that's enough about that book. I've been asked to answer a few questions. It's called a skim reading questions. So the first one is, what am I currently reading? And currently I'm reading a book about the life of Paul Gauguin, the artist. It's called Paul Gauguin, A Complete Life by David Sweetman. And it's very full detail of the time, even what's on the walls of the places he stayed. It's a very interesting book. And yes, I am enjoying it. It's not exactly a page turner, but if you're interested in other people's lives, then it's a good book to read. Now then, how much do I spend reading every day? Well, the answer to that is I more or less read all day online, mostly political stuff. But Sunday afternoons I reserve whenever possible for wallowing into printed books. I make a cup of tea, I put my feet up, and I enjoy. That is my most special treat. And well, what book will I recommend? Well, the book I probably enjoyed the most because it's so full of detail and it is so evocative of the times and smells of the place. And of course, it is a little bit autobiography. It's the book called Shantaram by Gregory David Roberts. If you haven't read it yet, read it. I find it it is an eye-opener and a gratifying read. And yes, I prefer paperback because I travel a lot. Paperbacks are the lightest and the best for traveling. And I prefer the printed form because I scribble on them sometimes, especially when they're going to be useful for me in the future. My next question is under 200 pages or over 500. And to be frank, it doesn't make any difference to me because good read is a good read. If it's a good read, if it's a really good read, I feel I could read on forever. Some books, I never want to stop. And I get slower and slower as I get to the end because I don't want it to end. And the next question is, do I read in the morning or right before bed? Um, well, as I said before, afternoons are my best place. I have a lovely little reading area, which is just beautiful to be in. Tiny, but beautiful. Fact or fiction? Well, it's fact usually, but it's not a hard rule of mine. As I said, I really do prefer biography or indeed autobiography, but most autobiographies are ghostwritten, so it's not quite fair to call them exactly autobiographies. But yeah, I like to know about people's lives. I like to know about people, what makes them tick. People are so interesting. And do I prefer new releases or literary classics? Well, both, and anything in between. Um, I just grab a book and read. Now, the next question is quite telling. What book couldn't I finish? And There is only one, and I remember it well. And it was a long time ago I picked it up. It was The Magic Mountain by Thomas Mann. I tried. I persevered. I picked it up and tried again, but ultimately I never got to the end. His style is just way too laboured and ponderous and repetitive for me. I just got impatient reading it, and it's a classic, but there we are. That's my truth. And what book am I dying to read next? Well, after I finish Gauguin, I'll be interested to read Perquet by Julie Dillon. It looks beautiful, and the illustrations look beautiful. So I'm really looking forward to bringing that one up onto my bookshelf next time. Um, and finally, where would I be if people stopped reading? Well, I suppose where would the world be if people stopped reading? Uh, I think the world would be a very sad place if people stopped reading. If they stop reading, they stop learning. If they stop learning, they stop imagining. If you stop imagining, the future becomes dead because all the great technical and medical breakthroughs have been made by people who imagined that it was possible to do whatever it was a different way. People who imagined it was possible to cure a disease and maybe devoted their whole lives to it. But reading is the core of all human activity, that some of our knowledge is in books. And I would not like a world without books. I think it would be incredibly sad. I would like to think that we will all progress, both in our physical dimension, in terms of education, healthcare, living standards, but also progress in the way that we think. I'm an anti-war campaigner, and the way that we think is really important when we think about conflict resolution and building a society of the future that is based on peace, on conflict, or the ability to resolve conflicts, because they will always happen, and where money is poured into war and militarization, where that money can going into our lives better, more prosperous, more gentle, and more advanced, because human societies do not need to be held back by war. They need to advance into a future where we've dealt with climate change, where we've dealt with pollution, where we've dealt with disease. So thank you for listening to me. That was an interesting group of questions I answered, and I hope you enjoyed it. Bye for now.